I received the text at 2 in the morning. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, pulling me from restless sleep. The message was from my parents, thanking me for the $554,000 I'd spent 3 weeks earlier to save their house from foreclosure. Then came the next line. Your sister Amanda doesn't want you at Thanksgiving, so please don't come. I stared at the screen in my dark Seattle apartment, hands trembling. I typed one word back, noted. Setting the phone down, I felt something inside me break clean through. I was done being the family's invisible savior. Sleep became impossible after that text. I sat in my living room as the city lights twinkled through the window, replaying the last 5 years of my life like a movie I couldn't pause. My name is Julio. I'm 32 years old, and I work as a software engineer here in Seattle. The tech industry has been good to me. I make a solid income, live modestly, save aggressively. My parents still live in the same house in Columbus, Ohio, where I grew up. My sister Amanda is a real estate agent who lives just 10 minutes from them with her 2 kids. 3 weeks ago, my life had turned upside down. My mother called me at work, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her words. The bank was foreclosing on their house. They'd taken out a second mortgage years ago and couldn't keep up with the payments anymore. They had 60 days before they'd lose everything. My father got on the line, his voice hollow with shame. They needed help. They needed money. A lot of money. I didn't hesitate. Maybe I should have, but I didn't. I called my bank that same afternoon. I emptied my savings account, liquidated my investment portfolio, and borrowed against my retirement fund. The total came to $554,000. I wired it the next morning. My mother called me crying again, but this time with relief and gratitude. She said I was their angel, their miracle. My father's voice cracked when he thanked me. He said he'd never forget what I'd done for them. That was 3 weeks ago. Now I held a text message telling me not to come home for Thanksgiving because my sister didn't want me there. When morning finally arrived, I dragged myself to work. My eyes felt like sandpaper. I couldn't focus on my code. Every few minutes, I'd pull out my phone and read that text again, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. My coworker Brandon noticed around 10 in the morning. He rolled his chair over to my desk and asked if I was okay. Brandon and I had been friends since I joined the company 4 years ago. He's the kind of person who actually listens when you talk. I showed him the text without saying anything. He read it 3 times, his expression darkening with each pass. This is insane, he finally said. You saved their house. You gave them over $500,000, and they're uninviting you from Thanksgiving? He looked at me like he expected me to be furious, but I just felt numb. Your sister doesn't even live there. She doesn't get to decide who comes to your parents' house. I told him I wasn't planning to respond. I'd just skip Thanksgiving this year. Maybe I'd work through the holiday or fly somewhere warm. Brandon shook his head. That's not the point, man. They owe you more than money. They owe you basic respect. I tried to get back to work, but my mind kept wandering. Around 3 in the afternoon, I received an email that made everything so much worse. It was a mass family email from Amanda. The subject line read, Thanksgiving plans finalized. I opened it with a sense of dread that proved justified. Amanda had written out the entire schedule for Thanksgiving at our parents' house. Dinner would be at 3. Everyone should bring a side dish. She listed every person invited, herself and her 2 kids, her ex-husband Derek, because they were apparently working things out, our cousin Rachel, and her husband, and their 3 children, Uncle Paul, who lived 2 hours away. The email went into detail about sleeping arrangements, about who would help with cooking, about when people should arrive. My name wasn't on the list, not once. But she'd copied me on the email anyway. Either it was an accident, or she wanted me to see exactly how excluded I was. The email ended with a line that made my stomach turn. Mom and Dad are so grateful to finally have the whole family together for the holidays. I sat staring at that email for 20 minutes. Brandon came back over. I showed him. He actually swore out loud, which he never does. She copied you on the email about how the whole family is getting together, but you're not invited? That's sociopathic. That word stuck with me. Sociopathic. I'd never thought of Amanda that way before. She was just my older sister, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. But as I sat there reading that email over and over, something clicked into place. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. She wanted me to know I was excluded. She wanted me to feel it. I couldn't let it go. That evening, back at my apartment, I opened my laptop and started searching through old emails. I have a habit of saving everything, organizing it into folders by year and category. Family emails went back 7 years in my archive. I started digging. 2 months before the foreclosure crisis, I found a thread that made my blood run cold. Amanda had emailed our parents about wanting to buy an investment property downtown. Columbus was growing, she wrote. Real estate values were climbing. She'd found a perfect condo that could be rented out for steady income. She just needed help with the down payment. Our mother had responded, "We don't have anything left after helping you with the divorce, sweetheart. We're tapped out." Amanda's reply came an hour later. "What about asking Julio?" I had to read that line 3 times. What about asking Julio? Like I was a bank. Like I was a resource to be tapped whenever she needed funding. My father's response tried to shut it down. "He already helped pay for your divorce lawyer last year. We can't keep asking him for money. It's not fair to him." But Amanda pushed back. "He makes plenty. He won't mind. He never spends money on anything anyway. He just saves it. What's the point of having money if you don't help family?" The thread went quiet after that. No more emails. I checked the dates. 4 weeks later, my mother called me crying about the foreclosure. I felt physically sick. I got up and paced my apartment, phone in hand, trying to piece together what this meant. Had they manufactured the crisis? No, that seemed too extreme. But had they leveraged a real problem to get me to pay for Amanda's investment property? Had the second mortgage ever been about helping Amanda through her divorce? Or was that a lie too? I needed to talk to someone who might tell me the truth. I called my younger brother Marcus. He lives in Denver and has always kept his distance from family drama. We're not particularly close, but we're honest with each other. He answered on the 3rd ring, surprised to hear from me. I told him everything. The text message, the email, the money. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Finally, Marcus said, "I'm not surprised." His voice was tired. "Amanda's always been the favorite. You know that, right? You've always known that." I did know that. I'd known it my whole life. But hearing Marcus say it out loud still hurt. He continued, "Last Christmas, Amanda told everyone you were emotionally unavailable. She said you're bad with relationships and that's why you throw money at problems instead of being present." Mom and Dad just nodded along. I remembered last Christmas. I'd spent it alone in Seattle. My parents told me there wasn't enough room at the house because Amanda's family was taking the guest rooms, and cousin Rachel was staying too. They suggested I come for New Year's instead, but by then I'd made other plans. I'd told myself it was fine. I was used to being alone on holidays. Marcus wasn't finished. "Hold on," he said. "I'm sending you something." A minute later, a screenshot appeared in our text thread. It was from Amanda's Facebook page, dated 3 weeks ago. The same week I'd wired the money to save the house. The post showed Amanda standing in front of a sleek downtown condo building. She wore a blazer and a huge smile. The caption read, "New investment opportunity. Dreams coming true. Sometimes you just have to be patient and things fall into place. Blessed beyond measure." The post had 63 likes. Comments poured in from friends and family congratulating her. Our mother had commented, "So proud of you, sweetheart. You work so hard and deserve this." Our father had simply put a string of heart emojis. I stared at that screenshot until my vision blurred. Amanda had bought her investment property. With my money. Money I'd been told was going to save the family home from foreclosure. And she'd posted about it publicly, thanking the universe for her patience while I'd emptied my entire financial future to make it possible. Marcus said quietly, "I'm sorry, man. I should have told you sooner. I just thought you knew what they were like." I told him I had to go. I needed to think. He made me promise to call him if I needed anything. I promised, but I knew I wouldn't. I needed to handle this myself. The next morning, I called my mother. I needed to hear her voice. I needed to hear her explain this. Maybe there was something I was missing, some piece of the puzzle that would make everything make sense. The phone rang 4 times before she answered, her voice cheerful and warm. "Oh, honey, I'm so glad you called. Listen, about Thanksgiving. I know that text was a little abrupt, but you have to understand Amanda's been under so much stress." I interrupted her. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Did you take out a second mortgage to buy Amanda an investment property?" The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, my mother spoke, and her tone had changed completely. The warmth was gone. "Where did you hear that? Is it true?" I asked. She deflected immediately. "The second mortgage was for many things, Julio. Amanda's divorce was very expensive. There were medical bills. The roof needed repairs. You don't understand how much it costs to maintain a house this old." I pressed forward. I saw Amanda's Facebook post. She bought a condo downtown 3 weeks ago. The same week, I sent you $554,000. My mother's voice hardened like concrete. "You've been spying on your sister, going through her social media? That's exactly why she doesn't want you at Thanksgiving. You're always judging her, always acting superior just because you make good money." The accusation hit me like a slap. "I gave you over $500,000, I said. My voice cracked, despite my best effort to stay calm. "I emptied everything I had. I borrowed against my future. I did that because you said you'd lose the house. And we're grateful," my mother snapped. "But money isn't everything, Julio. Amanda is here. She visits us every week. She brings the grandkids over. You're out in Seattle living your life, doing whatever you want. You can't just throw money at us and think that makes up for not being present. You can't buy your way into this family." Her words knocked the wind out of me. "I'm not trying to buy anything. I was trying to help. You called me crying. You said you were desperate. Well, you did help. The house is saved. But that doesn't mean you get to cause problems between me and your sister. She's very sensitive right now. She's trying to rebuild her life after everything Derek put her through. And you're digging through her private business, making accusations." My mother's voice rose. "I raised you better than this. Family supports each other. They don't tear each other down." I tried to respond, but she cut me off. "I have to go. Amanda just got here and she's upset. You need to think about the kind of son and brother you want to be." The line went dead. I sat in my apartment, phone in hand, feeling like I'd been turned inside out. Somehow, in the span of one phone call, I'd become the villain. I was the problem. I was the one causing trouble. The fact that I'd given them more money than most people see in a lifetime didn't matter. The fact that they'd apparently used that money to fund my sister's business venture didn't matter. What mattered was that I dared to question the narrative they'd built. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. I opened it with shaking hands. The message read, "Your mother is very upset. Amanda is crying. You need to apologize to both of them. This is exactly the kind of behavior that makes family gatherings difficult. We raised you better than this. If you can't be part of this family without causing drama, maybe it's better you stay in Seattle." I read the text 5 times. My father, who had cried with gratitude when I sent the money, was now telling me I was the problem. My father, who had called me their miracle, their angel, was now suggesting I should stay away. I'd been completely reframed. In their story, I wasn't the son who'd sacrificed everything to save them. I was the troublemaker, the ungrateful one, the son who threw money around and then used it as leverage to judge and criticize. I set my phone down and walked to my window. Seattle sprawled below me, gray and cold under November clouds. I'd lived here for 8 years. I'd built a life, a career, a small circle of good friends. But I'd always thought of Ohio as home. I'd always thought of my parents' house as the place I belonged, even if I only visited twice a year. Now I realized I'd been holding on to a fantasy. That house had never been my home. Maybe it never had been. The weekend passed in a blur of anger and grief. I barely ate. I didn't sleep well. I kept replaying conversations, wondering if I'd misunderstood something fundamental about my family. On Saturday, Brandon called and insisted I come over. His wife made dinner, and they both listened as I unloaded everything. Brandon's wife, Jennifer, works in HR and has a good sense for people dynamics. She said, "You've been scapegoated. That's what's happening. They needed someone to blame for their guilt, so they made you the bad guy." On Monday morning, Brandon convinced me to see a lawyer. "Just consult with someone," he said. "Understand your options. You don't have to do anything, but at least know where you stand." He gave me the name of an attorney his family had used for estate planning. Her name was Catherine Walsh. I called and got an appointment for that afternoon. Catherine's office was downtown, high up in one of those glass towers with a view of the Sound. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed and direct. I liked her immediately. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. She asked me to explain the situation from the beginning, and she took notes while I talked. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me with something like sympathy. "Do you have documentation of the loan?" she asked. That word, loan, caught me off guard. "It wasn't a loan," I said. "I just gave them the money. They needed help. I never asked them to pay it back." Catherine nodded slowly. "So there was no written agreement? No promissory note? No terms of repayment?" I shook my head. She leaned back in her chair. "Then legally, it was a gift. You have no recourse to recover the money." The finality of that statement settled over me. I'd known this on some level, but hearing a lawyer confirm it made it real. $554,000, gone, just gone. Catherine watched my face and continued. "However, there might be other angles here. You mentioned your sister may have misrepresented the purpose of the second mortgage to the bank. If she committed fraud in securing that loan, that's a different matter. But proving it would be difficult, expensive, and it would destroy your family relationships completely." "They're already destroyed," I said quietly. Catherine folded her hands on her desk. "Here's what I think you actually want, Julio. You don't want the money back. You want acknowledgement. You want respect. You want an apology. Those things can't be compelled through legal action, but they can be negotiated." She paused. "My advice? Document everything. Save every email, every text, every social media post. Then use that documentation as leverage. Not for money, but for the truth." I left her office feeling slightly more grounded. I had a plan now, even if it was vague. I spent the rest of Monday organizing files, screenshots, email threads. I created a timeline of events. I documented Amanda's Facebook post, the email threads about the investment property, the foreclosure crisis, everything. By Tuesday evening, I had a folder with over 100 pages of evidence. Evidence of what? Exactly. I wasn't sure. But I had it. Wednesday came. Thanksgiving was 2 days away. I made a decision that surprised even me. I booked a flight to Columbus. Red-eye on Wednesday night, arriving Thursday morning. I wasn't going to hide. I wasn't going to disappear quietly. If they wanted me gone, they'd have to say it to my face. That night, as I packed a small bag, my phone buzzed with a Facebook message. I almost ignored it, but the name caught my attention. Derek, Amanda's ex-husband. I hadn't spoken to Derek in over 2 years, not since the divorce. We'd never been particularly close. I opened the message, curious. It was long. Derek wrote, "I heard what happened with Thanksgiving. Marcus told his girlfriend, and she told me. We're still friends. I need to tell you something, and I probably should have told you a long time ago. Amanda never told your parents the truth about our divorce. I didn't cheat on her. She cheated on me. With her business partner, a guy named Greg who runs a property management company. I found out she'd been funneling money from our joint accounts into a separate LLC they'd set up together for real estate investments. When I confronted her, she convinced your parents I was financially abusing her. She said I controlled all our money and wouldn't let her have access. That's why they took out the second mortgage, to help her escape me. I have bank statements and text messages that prove everything. I kept them in case I ever needed them for the kids. I'm done protecting her, Julio. She's poison, and she's poisoned your whole family against you. If you want the evidence, I'll send it. You deserve to know the truth." The message ended there. 3 minutes later, he sent attachments, bank statements, showing transfers from their joint account to an LLC called Summit Properties. Text messages between Amanda and Greg, discussing the business, discussing meetings, discussing keeping it secret from Derek. More texts between Amanda and our mother, where Amanda described Derek as controlling and financially abusive. Our mother's responses, full of sympathy and rage on Amanda's behalf. I sat on my bed, surrounded by these documents, and felt the final piece click into place. This wasn't just about favoritism or bad family dynamics. This was calculated. Amanda had orchestrated an entire narrative, used our parents' love and guilt, and extracted over $500,000 to fund a business venture with the man she'd had an affair with. And when I dared to question it, she'd turned everyone against me with the same skills she'd used to convince them Derek was abusive. I replied to Derek, "Thank you. I'm flying to Columbus tomorrow. I'll be at the house for Thanksgiving." He wrote back immediately, "I'll be there too." She invited me to try to prove we're working things out. Her lawyer thinks it looks good for custody. I'm going to tell the truth this time, in front of everyone. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my window watching the city lights and wondering what kind of explosion I was about to set off. But I was past caring. I was done being quiet. I was done being the invisible son who showed up with money and disappeared when he wasn't needed. If my family was going to fall apart, it might as well fall apart in the daylight. My flight landed in Columbus at 9 on Thursday morning. I rented a car and drove through the familiar streets of my childhood. Everything looked smaller than I remembered. The trees were bare, the sky was gray, and a cold wind blew trash across empty parking lots. I drove slowly, giving myself time to prepare. I arrived at my parents' house just before 11. The driveway was packed with cars. I recognized Amanda's SUV, Uncle Paul's truck, Cousin Rachel's minivan, and Derek's sedan. I parked on the street and sat for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, breathing deeply. Then I got out and walked to the front door. I knocked. Footsteps approached. The door opened, and my mother stood there in an apron, a dish towel in her hands. Her face went completely white. "Julio," she whispered. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here for Thanksgiving," I said calmly. Behind her, I heard Amanda's voice. "Who is it, Mom?" Then Amanda appeared, pushing past our mother. When she saw me, her expression went from curious to furious in an instant. "You weren't invited," she said. "It's my family too," I replied. My father came to the door now, followed by Uncle Paul and Cousin Rachel. The kids were somewhere in the background, laughing and playing. Derek appeared last, standing at the back of the group. When he saw me, he gave a small nod. The entire gathering was watching now, crowded into the entryway like we were all actors on a stage. My father tried to take control. "Julio, this isn't a good time. You should have called first. We could have talked about this." His voice was strained, uncomfortable. "I did call," I said. Mom hung up on me. Amanda stepped forward, blocking the doorway with her body. "You need to leave. You're ruining everything like you always do. Nobody wants you here." Her voice was loud enough that the kids stopped playing. The house went quiet. I stayed calm. I'd practiced this moment in my head all night. I spent $554,000 to save this house. I think I've earned the right to at least stand on the porch. The number hung in the air. I heard gasps from inside. Uncle Paul's eyebrows shot up. Cousin Rachel's mouth fell open. Apparently, the full amount hadn't been shared with everyone. Amanda's face flushed red. "Nobody asked you to do that. You just threw money at the situation so you could feel superior, so you could hold it over our heads. That's what you always do." "You asked them to ask me," I said. "I saw the emails. You wanted me to fund your investment property." Amanda's expression flickered. Just for a second, I saw panic. Then it hardened into rage. "You went through private family emails? You're actually insane. Do you hear yourself?" My mother stepped forward, her voice shaking. "Julio, please, don't do this in front of everyone. Can't we talk about this privately?" But I was done with private conversations that got twisted and reframed. "I think everyone deserves to know the truth," I said. That's when Derek spoke up. He'd been standing silently at the back, But now he moved forward. "Amanda, maybe you should tell them the truth yourself." His voice was quiet but firm. Amanda whirled on him. "Shut up, Derek. This has nothing to do with you." There was genuine fear in her voice now, but Derek didn't shut up. He stepped fully into the doorway, facing the family. "I never abused her. I never controlled her money. She had an affair with her business partner. She stole from our joint accounts to fund a real estate LLC. I have bank records, text messages, everything. Your parents took out a second mortgage based on lies." The silence that followed was deafening. Then everyone started talking at once. Uncle Paul demanded to know what was going on. Cousin Rachel pulled out her phone and started recording, which made Amanda scream at her to stop. The kids started crying. My mother burst into tears and rushed upstairs. My father stood frozen, his face gray. Amanda turned her fury on me. "You brought him into this? You turned my ex-husband against me? You're trying to destroy my life because you're jealous. Because you've always been jealous that Mom and Dad actually love me." She was screaming now, her voice breaking. "I have kids, Julio. I have a life here. You have nothing. You're pathetic and alone, and you're trying to ruin my family because you can't stand that I'm happy." Derek stepped between us. "Don't," he said to Amanda. "Don't make this worse. Just stop." But Amanda couldn't stop. She looked around at everyone, her eyes wild. "He's lying. Derek's lying. He's trying to turn you all against me because I'm finally moving on. And Julio's helping him because he's always hated me. Always." She looked at our father. "Dad, tell them. Tell them what Julio's really like. Tell them how he's always been cold. How he only cares about money." Our father finally found his voice. It came out weak, defeated. "Amanda, enough." He looked at me, and I saw something like shame in his eyes. "Everyone needs to calm down. This is Thanksgiving, but the damage was done." Uncle Paul spoke up, his voice hard. "I lent you $20,000 last year. You said it was for medical bills. Where did that money go?" He looked between my parents and Amanda. "Did that go into this real estate thing too?" Cousin Rachel chimed in, still holding her phone up. "I sent $5,000 for the roof repairs. Was any of this real?" The room erupted again. More accusations, more denials. Amanda grabbed her kids and pushed past everyone, running to her car. She left without another word, tires squealing as she drove away. Derek stood there for a moment, looking at my parents. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I should have said something sooner." Then he left too. The remaining family members dispersed like smoke. Uncle Paul walked out shaking his head. Cousin Rachel hugged me quickly and whispered, "I'm glad you came," before gathering her family and leaving. Within 15 minutes, the house was nearly empty. Just me, my father, and the sound of my mother crying upstairs. My father and I stood in the living room. The turkey sat half prepared in the kitchen. Dishes were scattered across counters. The whole house smelled like failure. My father finally looked at me. "You've destroyed this family," he said. His voice was hollow. "I didn't destroy anything," I replied. "I just stopped pretending." He sat down heavily on the couch. "We knew about the affair. Your mother and I both knew. Derek told us months before the divorce. But Amanda was devastated. She said she'd made a mistake, that she wanted to fix her life, start over. We decided to support her. Marriages are complicated. People make mistakes. So you let me give you over $500,000 based on a lie?" I asked. My voice stayed level, but inside I was screaming. My father looked up at me. "We needed the money either way. Does the reason really matter? The house was underwater. We couldn't make payments. You helped us. That's what family does." I stared at my father, this man who'd raised me, who'd taught me to ride a bike and throw a baseball. "You're not even sorry," I said. It wasn't a question. He didn't answer. Upstairs, my mother's crying had stopped. I heard her footsteps. She came downstairs, her face composed now, cold. She looked at me without emotion. "I think you should leave, Julio. You've said what you came to say. You've ruined Thanksgiving. I hope you're satisfied." I picked up my jacket from where I'd set it by the door. "I came here hoping you'd finally see me," I said. "Really see me. Not as a wallet, not as the distant son, but as a person who loves you and has been trying so hard to be enough." My mother's expression didn't change. "You were always enough. You just never understood that family requires sacrifice. Real sacrifice. Not just money." I left. I walked out of that house and got in my rental car. As I drove away, my phone started buzzing. Text after text, notification after notification. I pulled over and checked. Cousin Rachel had posted the video. The whole confrontation was on Facebook. The comments were already pouring in. Extended family members I hadn't spoken to in years were weighing in, taking sides, sharing their own stories of lending money to my parents or to Amanda. But worse was Amanda's post. She'd written a long statement claiming I'd been financially controlling and abusive to the family for years. She said I'd held the house payment over their heads, that I'd shown up to Thanksgiving specifically to publicly humiliate her in front of her children. She painted herself as the victim of my cruelty, and people were believing her. Friends who didn't know the full story were commenting with support, telling her how sorry they were, how strong she was. I sat in that rental car on a quiet suburban street and watched my reputation disintegrate in real time. Everything I'd done, every sacrifice I'd made, was being rewritten. In the public narrative, I wasn't the son who'd saved his family. I was the abuser. I drove to a hotel near the airport and checked in. I couldn't face the flight back to Seattle yet. I needed time to process what had just happened. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Extended family members were demanding explanations. Some believed me. Many believed Amanda. The family was splitting down the middle, and I was at the center of it. I turned off my phone and lay on the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling. Hours passed. Eventually, I turned the phone back on and found a message from Marcus. He'd seen everything online. "I believe you," he wrote. "I've always seen what they did to you. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. If you need anything, call me." Brandon had texted too. "Get home safe. We're here for you. Whatever you need." Other friends from Seattle reached out. People who actually knew me, who'd seen how I lived my life. Their support helped, but it didn't erase the pain. I flew back to Seattle the next morning, getting the first flight out. When I landed, I felt like I'd aged 10 years. The next few days were brutal. The Facebook war continued. More relatives weighed in. Some shared their own stories of being manipulated by Amanda or by my parents. Others defended the family, saying I was causing unnecessary drama, that I should have kept private matters private. A week passed. Then 2. I went to work, came home, avoided social media. I blocked my parents and Amanda on every platform. When relatives tried to contact me demanding I explain myself or defend Amanda, I ignored them. I was done explaining, done defending, done engaging with any of it. Marcus called regularly to check on me. He'd taken my side publicly online, which had caused his own rift with our parents. "They're angry at me now too," he said. "Apparently, I'm being disloyal. But I don't care. What they did to you was wrong." December arrived. The Seattle rain matched my mood. Then, 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, I received a certified letter. It was from my parents' attorney. My hands shook as I opened it. The letter was formal, cold. It stated that the $554,000 I'd provided was a gift with no expectation of repayment. They were requesting I sign a document acknowledging this fact for tax purposes. The letter included the document, already prepared, waiting for my signature. I called Catherine Walsh immediately. She read the letter over the phone, and I heard her laugh. Actually laugh. "They're worried you might sue them," she said. "This is a preemptive move. They want legal protection. Don't sign anything." She suggested a counteroffer. I would sign their gift acknowledgement, but only if they signed a statement acknowledging the true circumstances around the loan. The statement would detail Amanda's investment property, the misrepresentation about the foreclosure crisis, and the pattern of financial manipulation. It would also include a release stating I had no further financial obligation to the family, and an agreement to no contact unless they offered a genuine apology. I drafted the counteroffer with Catherine's help. It was precise, factual, and damning. I sent it via certified mail. Then I waited. Days passed, then weeks. Radio silence from Ohio. Christmas approached, and I accepted an invitation to spend it with Brandon's family in Portland. They welcomed me warmly. No drama, no manipulation, just genuine kindness. We played board games, ate too much food, watched movies. It was quiet and peaceful. I realized this was what family could feel like, should feel like. On New Year's Eve, I was back in Seattle. I'd decided to stay home, order takeout, maybe watch the fireworks over the Space Needle from my window. Then my email pinged. It was from my father. No greeting, no pleasantries, just, "We're declining your terms. Our attorney says we don't need your signature anyway. Amanda is talking to her lawyer about suing you for defamation. You should prepare for that." I stared at that email for a long time. Then I wrote back, "Let her sue. Discovery will be very interesting for her." I hit send and felt nothing. No anger, no fear, just tired acceptance. I never heard about the lawsuit again. It was an empty threat, and we both knew it. 3 months passed. Winter turned to early spring in Seattle. Cherry blossoms appeared in my neighborhood, those first fragile signs that life continues regardless of personal catastrophe. I rebuilt my savings slowly. I worked hard, got a promotion, started putting money away again. It would take years to recover financially, but I was young enough. I had time. My social life improved. I started dating someone named Laura. She was a third-grade teacher with a warm laugh and a stable, loving family. When I finally told her my story, expecting judgment or pity, she just hugged me tight and said, "You deserved better. I'm glad you're here now." That simple statement meant more than she could know. Uncle Paul reached out in February. He apologized for not seeing the patterns sooner, for not speaking up when it might have mattered. We met for coffee when he visited Seattle on business. The conversation was real, genuine. He admitted he'd lent our parents money multiple times over the years, always told it was for emergencies that never quite added up. "I'm done with that," he said. "I'm setting boundaries now." I was proud of him. Cousin Rachel called a few weeks later. She'd also cut financial ties with our parents and Amanda. "I feel guilty," she admitted. "They're family, but I can't keep participating in the dysfunction. I have my own kids to think about." We talked for an hour. It felt good to be understood. Marcus visited Seattle in April. We hiked in the Cascades, talked about everything and nothing. At one point, he said, "Mom and Dad ask about you sometimes." I waited. "They tell people you're too busy with work to visit. They don't admit what really happened. They've rewritten the whole thing in their heads." "Let them," I said. We were standing at a viewpoint, looking out at mountains still capped with snow. "What story do they tell about you?" I asked. Marcus smiled bitterly. "That I'm going through a phase. That I'll come back around when I mature." He shook his head. "I'm 30 years old. I have a good job, a girlfriend I love, a life I built myself. But to them, I'm just being rebellious." We stood there in silence, two brothers who'd escaped the same trap. After a while, Marcus asked, "Does it still hurt?" I thought about it honestly. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but I'm not angry anymore. I'm just free." That conversation stayed with me. Freedom. That's what this was. Not victory in any traditional sense. I hadn't gotten my money back. I hadn't received an apology. My parents hadn't suddenly seen the light and changed. But I'd freed myself from the need for those things. I'd stopped waiting for them to validate me. A year after that terrible Thanksgiving, life looked completely different. Laura and I were serious. She'd met my friends, and I'd met her family. Her parents were kind, normal people who communicated directly and actually enjoyed spending time together. Being around them was healing. They showed me what functional looked like. Marcus called in October. "You'll never guess," he said. "Mom and Dad are selling the house." I felt a small jolt, but nothing like the pain I'd expected. He continued, "They're downsizing to a condo, can't afford the upkeep anymore. And get this, Amanda's investment property thing failed. She's underwater on the condo. Her business partner, Greg, apparently took most of the money and disappeared. She's in debt and moving back in with them temporarily. I absorbed this information. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated, but mostly I just felt sad. Sad for the waste of it all. They asked if you'd be willing to help with the move, Marcus said. I could hear the test in his voice, wondering if I'd fall back into old patterns. I laughed. Actually laughed. No, I said simply. Good, Marcus replied. Just wanted to make sure you'd hold firm. You've come so far. Don't go backward now. We talked for a while longer about his life, his girlfriend, my relationship with Laura. Before we hung up, Marcus said, I'm proud of you, you know. It took guts to walk away. Most people can't do it. That November, Laura and I hosted Thanksgiving at my apartment. We invited Brandon and Jennifer, a few other close friends, and Laura's parents. 12 people total, crowded into my space, laughing and cooking together. Laura made stuffing from her grandmother's recipe. I handled the turkey. Brandon brought wine. It was chaotic and warm and absolutely perfect. As we sat down to eat, Laura's father asked if we could go around the table and share what we were grateful for. It was a little corny, but I didn't mind. When it came to my turn, I looked around at these people who'd chosen to be in my life, who showed up without conditions or manipulation. I'm grateful for family, I said, the family we choose. Laura squeezed my hand under the table. She understood. Everyone there understood. These were people who knew my story and loved me anyway, not because of what I could do for them or what I could provide, but because they genuinely enjoyed my company, because I added value to their lives just by being myself. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and Laura and I were cleaning up, she asked, Do you think you'll ever reconcile with your parents? I thought about it while scraping plates. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe someday if they're willing to acknowledge what happened and actually change. But I'm not holding my breath, and I'm okay with that. She nodded. You seem happy. Happier than when we first met. She was right. I was happy, not because everything was perfect, but because I'd stopped letting other people's dysfunction control my peace. I'd stopped believing I needed to earn love through sacrifice. I'd learned that walking away from toxicity wasn't giving up. It was choosing myself. I thought about that 2 a.m. text message that had started everything. My parents thanking me for over $500,000, then telling me not to come to Thanksgiving because my sister didn't want me there. At the time, it had shattered me. Now, I saw it differently. That text was a gift in its own way. It had forced me to see the truth I'd been avoiding my entire adult life. My family didn't value me. They valued what I could provide. And once I stopped providing it, I became disposable. The hard lesson I learned through all of this was about worth. For years, I believed that if I gave enough, sacrificed enough, proved myself enough, my family would finally see me. But I was looking for validation from people who needed me to stay invisible. My worth was never the question. Their inability to see it was their failure, not mine. I couldn't make them value me. I could only decide to value myself. I learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. That protecting your peace isn't selfish. That family is supposed to be a safe place, and when it's not, you're allowed to build your own. I learned that love without respect is just manipulation. That gratitude expressed but not demonstrated is meaningless. That blood relation doesn't obligate you to accept abuse. Standing in my kitchen that Thanksgiving night, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, complete, whole. The people who mattered knew my worth. I knew my worth. That was enough, more than enough. I texted Laura after she'd gone home. Want to do Christmas at your parents' place this year? She wrote back immediately. They'd love that. They already asked if you're coming. They really like you. I smiled at my phone. They really like you. Not they like what you can do for them. Not they tolerate you. They like you. Simple, honest, real. I wrote back. Tell them I'll bring dessert. As I got ready for bed, I thought about my family in Ohio. My parents in their house they'd nearly lost, dealing with Amanda's latest crisis. Amanda herself, watching her investment dreams collapse, moving back home at almost 40 years old. Marcus had told me they rarely mention my name anymore. When people ask about me, they say I'm busy with work, that I live far away, that I've always been independent. They've rewritten history to make sense of my absence. Maybe that's easier for them than admitting what they did. Maybe they genuinely believe their version of events now. Humans are good at that, reshaping memory to protect the ego. I didn't know, and increasingly, I didn't need to know. Their story was their business. My story was mine. I got into bed and lay in the dark, listening to the city sounds outside my window. Seattle traffic, a siren in the distance, wind in the trees. I thought about the Julio who'd received that text message a year ago. How devastated he'd been, how confused, how desperate to understand and fix and make it right. I wished I could tell him it would be okay, that the breaking would lead to rebuilding, that losing his family would lead to finding himself, that the pain had purpose, even if it didn't feel that way in the moment. But that Julio had to walk this path himself, had to feel every bit of the hurt and betrayal and grief, had to sit with the anger and the loss, had to learn, slowly and painfully, that some things can't be fixed, some relationships can't be saved, some people won't change no matter how much you want them to, and that's not your failure. It's just reality. The sooner you accept it, the sooner you can build something better. I fell asleep that night at peace, not because everything was resolved, but because I'd stopped needing resolution. I'd stopped waiting for my parents to call and apologize, stopped hoping Amanda would acknowledge what she'd done, stopped believing that someday they'd realize my value and come back with changed hearts. Maybe that would happen. Probably it wouldn't. Either way, I was okay. I'd built a life that didn't require their approval. I'd found people who saw me clearly and chose me anyway. I'd learned that I was enough all along. I just needed to believe it myself. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Laura. She'd sent a photo of her family's Christmas tree going up, along with a message. Mom says, if you're coming for Christmas, you're required to help decorate. Dad's threatening interpretive dance with the tinsel. Fair warning. I laughed out loud in my empty apartment. This, I thought. This is what it's supposed to feel like. I texted back. Interpretive tinsel dance sounds amazing. I'm in, and I was in, fully present, fully invested. Not because I was trying to prove anything or earn anything, but because these people made space for me. They invited me into their chaos and their traditions and their love, not as a guest or an outsider, but as someone who belonged. I'd spent 32 years looking for that feeling in the wrong place. Now I'd found it, and I wasn't letting go. So I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to walk away from family to protect yourself? How did you find the strength to do it, and what did you learn from the experience? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories about overcoming family challenges and finding your own path. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, share this video with them. Sometimes knowing we're not alone makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it was long, and I appreciate you sticking with me through all of it. Remember that your worth isn't determined by how others treat you. It's inherent. You matter because you exist, not because of what you can provide. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Take care of yourselves, protect your peace, and never apologize for choosing your own well-being. I'll see you in the next story.